Chapter 20. Thwack, 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 thwack. The sound of the rotors was a roar. They were not going to pull up. We were going to hit. But then, a flicker of the pilot's eyes, a twitch of his hand on the control stick. I cranked right. The helicopter cranked left. It blew past me like a tornado. The backwash of the rotors caught me and tumbled me through the air. I fell, upside down. I folded my wings, flared my tail, and spun around. I opened my wings and swooped neatly between two trees. I banked left and flew over the cave. Rachel was the last one in. She was still clearly visible. The helicopter would almost certainly have seen her. I watched until she was safely inside. Okay, you guys, I don't think anyone saw you. Be cool till I tell you it's time. They couldn't answer, of course. They were still fully human. So they could hear my thought speech, but could not respond in kind. The Yeerks went through the familiar routine. The phony park rangers found out around the lake with automatic weapons ready. The helicopters buzzed around until they decided the area was free of witnesses. The helicopters landed and the Hork-Bajir jumped out. They seemed extra careful. Probably Visitor 3 had given them all kinds of grief over the guy I had helped us to escape the day before. Visitor 3 was not a creature you wanted mad at you. And then I felt it. The emptiness in the sky. The sense of something monstrously huge moving slowly through the air. It was above me. Slowly it appeared, shimmering into reality like some kind of magic trick. You can never really get used to how big that thing was. It felt like someone was hanging a small moon over your head. I flew out from under it, over closer to the cave. It's here, I announced. From behind the truck ship came the usual guard of bug fighters. Only instead of 2 bug fighters, there were 4. The Yeerks were definitely nervous this time. 2 of the bug fighters remained on patrol. The other 2 landed in the clearing beside the helicopters. Why? Why the extra security? Was it just because of the guy I had helped to escape? I felt something new in the air above the hovering truck ship. Another cloaked ship. Not as large, but from that emptiness in the sky, I felt a dread that I had felt before. The cloak shimmered out of the ship, appeared. Black within black, an out-thrust spear, razor-edged. I had seen this ship before, the blade ship. I had seen it first at the construction site where the Andalite had been murdered while we cried helplessly. No wonder the Yeerks were nervous. The blade ship lowered toward the landing area. The Hork-Bajir on the ground and the park rangers were in a frenzy now, searching the woods as if their lives depended on it. 2! Someone had fired a Draken beam. I looked and saw a deer in mid-leap sizzle and disappear. The Yeerks were shooting anything that moved. The doors of the blade ship opened. More Hork-Bajir poured out. Draken beams leveled. Behind them came a pair of Taxxons, slithering and shimmying on their needle legs, undulating their gross caterpillar bodies. At last, he stepped out. Dainty Andalite hooves. Deadly Andalite tail, like a scorpion's. The mouthless Andalite face. And 2 small Andalite arms with too many fingers. The 2 mobile eyes mounted on antler-like stalks that turned this way and that, always searching, so that the large main eyes could focus on one thing at a time. An Andalite body, but not an Andalite mind. For in that Andalite body lived a Yeerk, the only Andalite controller, the only Yeerk ever to enslave an Andalite, and thus the only Yeerk to have the power to morph. I dropped down into the trees. I waited till a patrolling Hork-Bajir had walked past the cave where my friends hid. When I was sure no one would see, I fluttered down into the cave, scraping the bushes on either side. "Tobias, is that you?" Jake whispered. "Yes." "What are you doing here? That's not the plan." "Forget the plan. He's here." No one had to ask who. They all knew from the way I had said it. He was here. Visser 3. Chapter 21. "What is he doing here?" Cassie asked in a low, frightened whisper. "I guess he just came to oversee his trip. Maybe it was because he let that guy get away." "He's here to kick butt on his boys," Marco said, trying to sound tough. "They screwed up, and now he's here to make sure they don't do it again." "It doesn't really matter why he's here," I pointed out. "He's here. And there are extra Hork-Bajir, and the whole crowd is way nervous. One of the Hork-Bajir drakened a deer that just happened to be walking by. A deer? Cassie cried. Those stupid jerks. Deer never hurt anyone. The plan was for you to sneak down to the water, morph as soon as you got there, and head out for the ship's water intake, I reminded them. It was always a dangerous plan, but now it's impossible. 4 of you walking down to the water, then morphing? That's not going to happen. Not as alert as these guys are now. Not with Visitor 3 hanging around, Marco agreed. I disagree. It was Rachel. I think we should still try this. Look, if we pull this off, if we manage to get inside that ship and disable the cloaking device while they're over the city, this whole thing will be over. Jake jumped in to support her. We've always said if there was just some way to show the world what was happening, well, this is the way. This would be way too big for the controllers to cover up. I don't care who they are. Even if the mayor and the governor and the entire police force were controllers, they couldn't cover up something like this. Jake, you're not listening. I'm telling you, there is no way you 4 can cruise down to the lake. You'll be dead before you take 5 steps. For a while, no one spoke. It was Cassie who finally broke the silence. There may be a way, she said. See, a fish can survive out of water for a couple of minutes, and the fish we're morphing is small. She looked at me. Small enough for a red-tailed hawk to carry. Well, that idea got everyone's attention, I can tell you. Excuse me, Marco shrilled. Are you saying you want me to not just morph into a fish, but to morph into a fish out of water and then be carried through the air by a bird? Cassie bit her lip. I'm just saying it could work. It would work, Jake said. He and Rachel exchanged a slightly insane look that said, okay, let's try it. No way, I said. You guys are crazy. No offense, but this raises the danger level way beyond what it was to start with. I know it's dangerous, Jake said, but we may never get a chance this good. Marco whined. I argued. But in the end, it was 3 against 2. Besides, Jake was right. We had a chance to seriously mess up the Urks. I have watched Marco morph into a gorilla, Rachel become an elephant and a shrew and a cat, Cassie become a horse, and Jake become a tiger and a flea. Man, that was weird. But this was the first time anyone had tried morphing into an animal that lived in water. Cassie insisted on going first. It was my idea, she pointed out. She did not point out that she was also the best morpher. If you feel like you're suffocating, you have to back out of the morph, Jake told her. He took her hand. Are you listening to me? You have to back out if it gets bad. You can't pass out halfway into morph. Cassie smiled. I will, but don't worry about me. She closed her eyes and began to concentrate. I told you that Cassie is always the best at controlling a morph. She has an almost artistic talent. When she can make it look kind of cool and not so gross. But not this time. As I watched, her hair disappeared completely. Her skin began to harden, like it was coated with varnish or something. Like she had been dipped in clear plastic. Her eyes swung around to the side of her head. Her face bulged out into a huge mouth that gaped and seemed to be blowing invisible bubbles. As this happened, she was shrinking, but not fast enough. I could still see every nightmare change in her body. The way her legs shriveled up, smaller and smaller, till her legless body fell to the ground. From her lower back, her body stretched out, elongated. Oh, Rachel cried. A tail had just suddenly spurted from Cassie's behind, a fish tail. Now her varnish-looking skin cracked and split into a million scales. Her eyes were gone. Her arms were shriveling. She was no more than 2 feet long, lying helpless, a monster, on the floor of the cave. So far I'm fine, she said, but her thought speech was shaky. Still breathing with my lungs. But at that moment, 2 slits appeared on her neck. Gills. Ah! She cried. Cassie, pull out of it, Jake cried in an urgent whisper. No, almost done. Tobias. I'm ready, I said grimly. She was tiny now, less than a foot long. All that was left of her human body were 2 very tiny doll hands. They made little fins. Cassie flopped wildly, her mouth gasped silently. Go, Jake said. I closed careful talons around Cassie's squirming fish body, aiming for the small sliver of sky I could see through the cave's opening, and flapped my powerful wings. I burst out of the cave into fresh air. Are you okay, Cassie? Fish mind, panicky, water now. Hang in there. You've been through this before. You know how it is when you first go into a morph. You have to get control of the fish's instincts. Water! Water! I can't breathe! I was about 10 feet up, racing for the water's edge. Suddenly, below me, a hork-bajir. He looked up and saw me. A bird with a fish in his talons. I doubted the hork-bajir would realize that redtails don't catch fish. At least I hoped he wouldn't. I swooped down over the water. The huge Yerk ship was just lowering its intake pipes into the water. I dropped behind the stand of trees that hugged the shoreline. Get ready, I warned Cassie. I let her go like one of those old World War II planes dropping its torpedo. She hit the water with a small splash. Are you all right? No answer. Cassie, I said, are you all right? Yeah, she said at last. I'm here. Are you dealing with the fish okay? Again, no answer. Then, whoa, cool, I'm underwater. I relaxed. Yes, you sure are underwater, I said with a laugh. I was scared, she admitted. I know this sounds crazy, but I just kept seeing myself, fried with a wedge of lemon and some tartar sauce. Chapter 22. Jake was next. He morphed and I flew him over the heads of 2 patrolling park rangers, who not even seemed to notice me. Then came Marco. When I exited the cave with him, I practically ran into a big hork-bajir. He didn't take any notice of me either. Cassie's plan was working. Even with all the controllers on maximum alert, it never occurred to them that their enemy might be a bird with a fish in its talons. Back in the cave, it was just Rachel. So far, so good, I said. Yeah, I guess so. Are you nervous? I'd have to be crazy not to be nervous. Oh well, here goes. She started to morph. I'd seen 3 others do it now, so it wasn't as surprising to me. But it was still horrifying to watch a friend, someone you cared about, twist into form and mutate before your eyes. I don't think any of us will ever get used to morphing. Maybe the Andalites are used to it. I don't know. But I'll bet it creeps them out too, when they have to change. I looked away as Rachel began to get strange and hideous. She was almost completely a fish when it happened. Crash, crash. Someone was forcing their way through the bushes at the mouth of the cave. Hraff, neath in the air, a hork-bajir. I see it, a human voice said grumpily. You know, these human bodies aren't blind. Just because you're in a hork-bajir, don't get delusions. Use those blades of yours to hack some of those thorns out of the way. I heard a sound like fast machetes slicing away through the vines and thorns. Better not find anything in here, a human controller said. The visitor will do to you what was done to that poor fool yesterday who let the human escape. I looked at Rachel. It was too late for her to morph back. What's going on? She asked. Yerks. A human controller and a hork-bajir controller, right outside the cave. Go in, Fergus, puny body. Ha ha. This was your sector to check. You didn't even notice this cave. Keep getting on my nerves and I'll tell him. He go frick eat you and eat your lolakath. Ha ha. Suddenly a human head appeared, followed by shoulders. He was wearing a park ranger's outfit. We have to make a break for it, I told Rachel. Here they come. Yeah, but there's a cave in here, all right. Some kind of bird? I grabbed Rachel, now fully in fish morph, but the human controller blocked the narrow entrance. Well, I thought, it worked with the helicopter. With a rush of wings, I flew right in his face. What the? He fell back, beating at the air. I scraped past him. The hork-bajir slashed at the air with one of his wrist blades. He shaved an inch off of my tail. But I was in the air now and moving faster. Only it was hard with Rachel. The weight of a fish is more than a red-tailed hawk can easily carry. And I had already carried 3. I was tired. Fortunately, I was also very scared. Fear can make you strong sometimes. Phew! A Draken beam sizzled the air above me. Unfortunately for the hork-bajir who had fired, the Draken beam did not stop when it buzzed by me. No, the Draken beam hit the underside of the vast truck ship. A small, neat, round hole appeared in the bottom of the ship. It was too small to amount to anything. But suddenly the hork-bajir lost interest in me. Fool! The human controller cried. Visitor 3 will have your head for dinner. While they were busy panicking, I dropped Rachel into the water with the others. Good work, Tobias, Jake said. Be careful up there, my friend. You too, I said. Good luck, you guys. I could just barely see them, a small school of fish in the shallows. They swam off and disappeared into deeper water. As I've told you before, there are limits to how far thought speech can reach. We don't really know what those limits are, but I wanted to stay as close to them as I dared in case they needed me. Not that there was much I could do to help someone underwater. I didn't want to stay right over them. I figured that would look suspicious to anyone on shore. It was hard to figure out what to do. The monstrous bulk of the truck ship was overhead, leaving only a few feet open above the surface of the water. I decided I had to chance it. I flew under the ship, skimming the dampened water below and practically scraping the metal belly of the ship above me. It was a very difficult flight. I had to stay almost totally level. I couldn't rise or fall by more than a couple of feet. You guys still okay? Tobias? I can't believe you can still thought speak with that whole ship between us, Rachel said. I guess I could have told her the truth. That I was within a few feet of them, but then Jake would have just gotten all mad and told me not to take stupid risks. I figured that between the time it had taken through the entire morphing process and carrying them one at a time to the water, plus now the time spent swimming out to the big intake pipe, Cassie had been in morph for just over half an hour. Jake had 10 minutes more, then Marco and Rachel. What are you guys doing now? I asked. We're looking at the bottom of this intake pipe. There's tremendous suction, Rachel reported. I'll go first and look around, see what's what, Jake announced. Here goes. Whoa, man. Whoa. Jake, are you okay? Cassie cried. Oh yeah, what a rush. They should have a water slide like that at the gardens. It's like being sucked up a straw by a giant. Cool, Rachel said. I'm next. No, let me look around first, Jake said. I seem to be in some kind of big tank. It's not very deep. At least not yet. It's filling up. With these lame fish eyes, I can't see beyond the surface of the water very well. But I think we're up in the ceiling. There's an opening. Like a grate or something. Up on the ceiling? How are we going to get up there? Marco asked. Well, I think if they fill this whole tank, we'll be near the top eventually. We should be able to morph to human, let ourselves out, and then morph into something more dangerous than our human bodies. Excuse me, Marco said, but does anyone else ever stop to realize that some of the things we talk about doing are totally insane? What? What? Turning into a fish? So we can be carried by a hawk and let ourselves be sucked up a pipe of an alien spaceship so that we can then turn into tigers and gorillas and whatever and overpower the creepy aliens? Rachel said. Is that what you mean by insane? That's it exactly. Yep, Rachel said. It is insane. Well, okay, Marco said. As long as we all know we're nuts, let's do it.